The distress call. In the depths of the Andromeda galaxy, the peaceful Zephyrian civilization thrived on their lush green homeworld. But one fateful day, a hostile alien race known as the Kragans launched a brutal invasion, catching the Zephyrians off guard. As cities burned and defenses crumbled, the Zephyrian Council made a desperate decision: to send out a distress call to the only beings in the universe feared by the Kragans: the humans. The human Deathworlder Fleet, hardened by the unforgiving conditions of Earth, picked up the signal. Admiral Nora Everly, a veteran of countless battles, knew they had to act fast. "Set a course for Zephyria," she ordered. "We've got aliens to save and Kragans to crush." As the fleet jumped into hyperspace, Lieutenant Xander Reeves couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and apprehension. Fresh out of the academy, he had studied the Kragans' brutal tactics, but facing them in combat was another matter entirely. He glanced at the determined faces of his crewmates, drawing strength from their shared resolve. On the bridge of the flagship, the U.S. Indomitable, Admiral Everly studied the intel on the Kragan forces. Their technology was advanced, their numbers vast. But she knew the humans had one crucial advantage: their indomitable spirit, forged in the crucible of Earth's harsh environment. They would not back down, not until Zephyria was free. As the fleet approached Zephyria, the scale of the invasion became clear. Kragan warships swarmed the planet, while fighters chased down the few remaining Zephyrian craft. Admiral Everly's eyes narrowed. "Hail the Zephyrian Council. Let them know the cavalry has arrived." The bridge crew watched as a hologram of a slender, iridescent alien appeared. "I am Counselor Xyleth of the Zephyrian Council. Are you the humans we call for aid?" Admiral Everly stepped forward, her voice filled with determination. "I am Admiral Nora Everly of the human Deathworlder Fleet. We received your distress call and stand ready to defend your world. Together, we will drive the Kragans back and restore peace to Zephyria." As the transmission ended, Lieutenant Reeves felt a surge of pride. This was what he had trained for, the chance to make a difference on a galactic scale. He knew the battle ahead would be hard-fought, but with the might of the human fleet and the courage of the Zephyrians, victory was within reach. The Kragans, confident in their conquest, were about to learn the true power of human resilience and the unbreakable bonds of alliance. The battle for Zephyria was about to begin. The initial engagement. As the human fleet took up defensive positions around Zephyria, Admiral Everly wasted no time in launching a counterattack. "All ships, engage the enemy. Fighters, keep those Kragan bombers away from the Zephyrian cities." The U.S.'s Indomitable shuddered as its powerful mass drivers fired, sending kinetic projectiles ripping through Kragan shields and hulls. Lieutenant Reeves, manning the weapons station, felt a grim satisfaction as he watched the enemy ships crumble under the onslaught. Across the fleet, human ingenuity and advanced technology were on full display. The Kragans, used to overwhelming their opponents with brute force, found themselves outmatched by human tactical prowess. Fighters danced through the void, their human pilots executing maneuvers that pushed the limits of physics and physiology. On the planet's surface, Zephyrian ground forces rallied, their spirits lifted by the sight of human ships engaging the Kragan invaders. Counselor Xyleth coordinated the defense efforts, sharing crucial intel with Admiral Everly. As the battle raged on, the tide began to turn. Kragan ships fell back, their formations in disarray. Lieutenant Reeves felt a surge of hope as he watched the enemy retreat. But Admiral Everly knew better than to underestimate the Kragans. They were a tenacious foe, and this initial victory was just the beginning. Back on Earth, news of the battle spread like wildfire. The public watched in awe as footage of human ships and fighters in action filled their screens. In the halls of power, leaders debated the implications of this new galactic conflict, even as they marveled at the bravery and skill of the Deathworlder Fleet. On Zephyria, the human and Zephyrian forces regrouped, tending to the wounded and assessing the damage. Lieutenant Reeves found himself working alongside Zephyrian medics, their slender fingers moving with surprising strength and dexterity as they treated both human and Zephyrian casualties. As the first stage of the battle drew to a close, Admiral Everly knew that the real challenge lay ahead. The Kragans would not give up easily, and the fight for Zephyria's freedom was far from over. But as she looked out at the determined faces of her crew and the grateful expressions of the Zephyrians, she knew one thing for certain: the Deathworlders would not rest until the job was done. In the depths of space, the Kragan fleet regrouped, their leaders seething with rage and humiliation. They had underestimated the humans, a mistake they would not make again. As they plotted their next move, the stage was set for a clash of civilizations that would echo across the galaxy. The battle for Zephyria had begun, and the stakes had never been higher. The resilience of the Deathworlders and the courage of the Zephyrians would be tested like never before in the trials to come. The battle for Zephyrian City. As the Kragan forces regrouped and launched a new offensive, their target became clear: Zephyrian City, the capital and heart of Zephyrian civilization. If the city fell, so too would the morale of the Zephyrian people. Admiral Everly knew they had to act fast. Working closely with Counselor Xylith, she devised a plan to fortify the city's defenses and draw the Kragans into a trap. "We'll use our ships to create a perimeter around the city," she explained. "When the Kragans attack, we'll hit them from all sides." Lieutenant Reeves found himself on the ground, leading a team of human marines and Zephyrian soldiers. As they set up defensive positions in the city's winding streets, he marveled at the Zephyrians' determination. These were not warriors by nature, but they fought with a fierce dedication to their home. As the Kragan ground forces advanced, the trap was sprung. Human fighters rained down fire from above, while Marines and Zephyrian soldiers engaged the enemy in close-quarters combat. The narrow streets of Zephyrian City became a labyrinth of death, with each side fighting for every inch of ground. Lieutenant Reeves found himself face to face with a hulking Kragan warrior, its scales glistening with blood. He ducked under its vicious claws and fired his plasma rifle, the searing bolt burning through the creature's chest. Around him, the battle raged on, a chaotic symphony of weapons fire and war cries. In orbit, Admiral Everly coordinated the fleet's movements, adapting to the Kragan's ever-shifting tactics. She watched with pride as her ships executed daring maneuvers, their human crews pushing themselves to the brink of exhaustion. As the battle stretched on, the Kragan's numbers began to thin. But they would not retreat, their warrior culture demanding nothing less than total victory or glorious death. Lieutenant Reeves and his team found themselves pushed back, the enemy's relentless assault taking its toll. In a moment of desperation, Reeves spotted a Kragan dropship landing in the city square, disgorging more warriors into the fray. He knew that if they didn't take out that dropship, the tide of battle could turn against them. With a daring plan forming in his mind, he gathered his remaining Marines and Zephyrian allies. Using the city's winding streets to their advantage, Reeves led his team in a flanking maneuver. They emerged from a side street just as the dropship was preparing to take off, its engines roaring to life. With a thunderous battle cry, they charged forward, pouring plasma fire into the dropship's exposed underbelly. The dropship exploded in a ball of flame, the shockwave knocking Reeves and his team off their feet. As they picked themselves up, they saw the Kragan warriors falter, their reinforcements cut off. With renewed determination, the human and Zephyrian forces surged forward, driving the enemy back. In orbit, Admiral Everly saw the Kragan fleet begin to waver. She seized the moment, ordering a coordinated strike on their command ship. The U.S. Indomitable led the charge, its mass drivers firing with relentless precision. As the Kragan command ship exploded, the remaining enemy forces fell into disarray. Some fled, while others fought to the bitter end. But the battle for Zephyrian City was won, the human and Zephyrian forces emerging victorious. On the ground, Lieutenant Reeves and his team stood amidst the rubble, their armor scorched and their faces weary. But as they looked out at the grateful faces of the Zephyrian civilians emerging from their shelters, they knew their sacrifice had been worth it. The battle for Zephyrian City had been a test of human ingenuity and Zephyrian courage, a shining example of what could be achieved when two species worked together in the face of overwhelming odds. But even as they savored their victory, they knew that the war was far from over. The Kragans would not forgive this defeat easily, and the Deathworlders would need to be ready for whatever came next. The infiltration. In the aftermath of the battle for Zephyrian City, the human and Zephyrian forces regrouped and consolidated their position. But Admiral Everly knew that the Kragans still posed a deadly threat, their advanced weapon systems giving them a significant advantage in ship-to-ship combat. To turn the tide of the war, they needed to neutralize the Kragans' technological edge. And to do that, they would have to strike at the heart of the enemy's power, their command ship. The plan was daring and risky, a testament to human determination and ingenuity. A small strike team, led by Lieutenant Reeves, would infiltrate the Kragan command ship and disable its weapon systems from within. It was a mission that would require stealth, skill, and no small amount of luck. As the strike team prepared for their mission, Admiral Everly took Lieutenant Reeves aside. "I won't lie to you, Xander," she said, using his first name for the first time. "This mission is dangerous, but if anyone can pull it off, it's you and your team." Reeves nodded, his jaw set with determination. "We'll get it done, Admiral. For Earth, for Zephyria, and for every other world the Kragans threaten." The strike team boarded a stealth shuttle, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to Kragan sensors. As they approached the command ship, Reeves felt a sense of calm settle over him. He had trained for this moment, and he knew his team was the best of the best. The shuttle docked with the command ship, its airlock sealing with a hiss. Reeves and his team emerged, their weapons at the ready. They moved through the ship's corridors like ghosts, their footsteps muffled by the advanced sound-dampening technology in their suits. As they neared the weapons control room, they encountered a group of Kragan guards. The fight was brief but intense, the humans' advanced combat training proving more than a match for the Kragan's brute strength. With the guards neutralized, Reeves and his team entered the weapons control room. They worked quickly, their hands flying over the alien controls with a dexterity born of hours of training and simulation. But as they were about to complete their mission, a loud alarm sounded throughout the ship. The Kragans had discovered their presence, and they were not happy. Reeves knew they had to act fast. With a final keystroke, he disabled the command ship's weapon systems, rendering it vulnerable to attack. But now they had to fight their way out, through a ship full of angry Kragans. The battle that followed was brutal and bloody, the humans fighting with a ferocity that surprised even the Kragans. They pushed through the ship's corridors, their weapons blazing, until they reached the shuttle bay. But as they prepared to board their shuttle, a massive Kragan warrior emerged from the shadows, its eyes blazing with fury. It was the ship's commander, and it would not let the humans escape without a fight. Reeves stepped forward, his plasma rifle leveled at the Kragan's chest. The two warriors faced each other, a moment of silence stretching between them. Then, with a roar, the Kragan charged. The fight was a blur of claws and plasma fire. The human and Kragan locked in a deadly dance. But in the end, it was Reeves who emerged victorious, his rifle smoking as the Kragan commander fell to the ground. With the command ship's weapons disabled and its commander defeated, the strike team made their escape, their shuttle blasting away from the crippled Kragan vessel. As they returned to the human fleet, they were greeted with cheers and applause. Admiral Everly clasped Reeves' hand, her eyes shining with pride. "You did it, Lieutenant. You turned the tide of this war." But even as they celebrated their victory, they knew that the final battle still lay ahead. The Kragans were wounded, but not defeated, and they would fight to the last to preserve their empire of conquest and cruelty. The stage was set for a showdown that would determine the fate of not just Zephyria, but the entire galaxy. and the Deathworlders would be there, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, united in their determination to protect the innocent and defend the cause of freedom. The final stand. With the Kragan command ship crippled and their weapon systems offline, the human and Zephyrian forces seized the initiative. Admiral Everly ordered a full-scale assault on the remaining Kragan fleet, determined to end the war once and for all. The USS Indomitable led the charge, its mass drivers firing with relentless precision. The other human ships followed suit, their advanced weapons cutting through Kragan shields like a hot knife through butter. On the planet's surface, Lieutenant Reeves and his team joined forces with the Zephyrian army, pushing the Kragan ground forces back with a combination of human tactical prowess and Zephyrian bravery. The Kragans fought with the desperate ferocity of a cornered beast, but they were no match for the combined might of the human and Zephyrian forces. One by one, their ships fell, their hulls shattered, and their crews scattered to the void. As the battle reached its climax, Admiral Everly received a transmission from the Kragan High Command. They offered a surrender, their once proud voices now trembling with fear and desperation. But Admiral Everly was not about to let them off easy. "Your surrender is accepted on one condition," she said, her voice cold and hard. "You will stand trial for your crimes against the galaxy. You will face justice for every world you have conquered, every species you have enslaved." The Kragan commander, its scales now dull and its eyes filled with defeat, had no choice but to agree. The war was over, and the Deathworlders had emerged victorious. In the aftermath of the battle, the human and Zephyrian forces began the long process of rebuilding. The Zephyrian cities, once proud and gleaming, now lay in ruins, their streets choked with rubble and debris. But the Zephyrians were a resilient people, and with the help of their human allies, they began to rebuild. Human engineers and scientists worked side by side with Zephyrian artisans and scholars, sharing knowledge and resources in a spirit of cooperation and friendship. As the weeks turned into months, a new Zephyria began to emerge from the ashes of the old. The cities were rebuilt, their spires reaching towards the sky once more. The fields were replanted, and the Zephyrian people began to heal from the scars of war. And through it all, the bond between the humans and Zephyrians grew stronger. What had begun as a desperate alliance had blossomed into a true friendship, a partnership that would endure for generations to come. For Lieutenant Reeves and his team, the war had been a defining moment. They had faced the horrors of battle and emerged stronger, their resolve tempered in the fires of combat. They knew that there would be other challenges ahead, other threats to face, but they also knew that they would face them together, united in their determination to protect the innocent and defend the cause of justice. As for Admiral Everly, she knew that the victory at Zephyria was just the beginning. The galaxy was a vast and dangerous place, filled with